All right, welcome everyone. North Suburban Chicago Tableau user group. It's kind of about now. Everyone, I believe, has the link because that's how you most likely got the RSVP for this meeting. I'm going to put it in the chat, meeting info. And I'm putting it in there not because you haven't already seen the agenda, but because I've added some links in there since we first published. So first of all, you'll notice, okay, the meeting, you're all fine. LinkedIn, fine. Questions. So if you have questions, you can post them to the Pigeonhole. So there's a link here and then a passcode. And what will happen is the questions will pop up here. So as the various presenters are speaking, you know, if you think of a question you want to ask them, you can post one here, and you know, and then people can vote for those questions, right? And then that gives the presenters an idea of what's most important to people. So maybe we'll only get, you know, a couple questions, and then that's easy. Maybe we get 1,000 questions and you want to answer the most voted for ones first, that kind of thing, right? So that link is right here. Here, I'll actually put that in the chat as well. Okay, so we got the question link there. And then I've got a couple things I'll say. So I'm Alex Steve Pataki from Baxter, and I'll be kicking the meeting off and running it. I help run the North Suburban Chicago Tableau user group. And of course, that link to where we are on LinkedIn was in the RSVP page that I just showed you. But if you go to LinkedIn and just type in North Suburban Chicago Tableau user group, you will find us that way as well. Also, the Tableau community site has got a site for all user groups, and you can find us there as well. There's a link there. So if you wanted to, you could go that way as well. I guess really quickly, because I just realized the last couple of meetings I haven't even said who I am, and not that you guys really need to know all that much or care, but I'll let you know anyway. I work for Baxter Healthcare. I've been there for a really, really, really long time. Right now, I'm a senior manager responsible for, as it says, IoT, data science, analytics, and BI stuff in the manufacturing IT space. Previously, I was global IT, and I ran all the Tableau systems and a lot of other BI systems and things. I'm actually working on an MS in data science because one MS was not enough. I say that somewhat jokingly because, you know, I would prefer to sleep sometime in 2022. I really look forward to that. Before then, I don't know how much it's going to happen, but, you know, we're kind of an AWS shop, and I'm really ramping up on my data science and Python skills right now and all that, and Tableau skills too. So I'm working on that as well. But I'm a big fan of this stuff. So there we go. With that, I have 9:07. The next thing is the meeting preference poll. So here, let me get this guy. Copy link. I'm going to put this in the chat. Preferences poll right now. Okay, so there's the poll. So I'm going to go there. Let's see here. Where are we? So one thing I don't like about those drop-down things is they get right in your way. And I'm going to start the poll. Connection to the poll is now open. Let me see. The voting link is here. It should be this one. There we go. Okay. So what I've done is I've just put out a quick poll to ask people, hey, some things about meetings, like when do you want to meet? What kind of content do you want? So this is the first question. Or like everything, I'm going to vote for Wednesdays and Thursdays myself, but you can vote for whatever you like. We've got 16 votes. Let me see how many people here are 44. So we'll give people a couple more seconds. We've got 10 voters out of 44 people. The voting link is in the chat. I just posted it a couple minutes ago. Meeting preferences poll right now. There's the link. That'll take you to the poll link. We've got 15 votes. We're going to move on to the next question, I think, because we want to keep things moving. Okay, so what times do you prefer for meetings, right? What time of day works for you? Or would you prefer, right? And you can vote for multiple, but I'm just trying to get a sense of, what's important to people and what's the easiest and that sort of thing. And I'm just looking at the number of voters. I can kind of see what's going on here. I can actually, let's see if I can see I think I can show you the results as they're going. While that's thinking. All right, we have the same number of votes there, so we're going to move on to the next question. Come on, you can do it. Oh, well, it looks like I missed one because I was I was too aggressive with my clicking, but that's okay. What types of sessions do you prefer at a TUG meeting? So, you can vote for whatever you like. I like these. I like all this stuff. I like all. You can vote for whatever you like. Let me see if this results thing. Yeah, let me see if I can get that results page up. Oh, that's better. So now we can actually see the live results as they're going. So tips and tricks seems to be the most popular one. What's new? Demos. Trivia challenge, which we're having today. Very little interest. So we'll do it today. But if the votes stay that way, then maybe that's not high on our list going forward. So that's fine. It's only for a few minutes at the end. All right, so we can see that this question. Hold on, let me see if I can move this. Can I still move it? I'm gonna move this one up. I apologize for direct poll being slow. I don't run their servers. I'm just waiting for it to come back. Come on. Okay, presentation length. Would you like, in a meeting, would you prefer less sessions that are kind of meatier, that, have more content in them, that take longer, or more shorter sessions? So would you like to have like, 4 20 or 30 minute sessions, or like 2 or 3, 45 to 1 hour sessions, right? That kind of thing. I could see this either way, so there is no wrong answer. I mean, I literally could see it either way. Maybe I should have had another choice that said mix it up, some meetings longer, some meetings shorter as a third choice. But really it could be, you could choose either way. I'm going to see. Man, honestly, it could be, for me, it's either. So we've got 11 votes. More shorter is heavily in the lead. That's interesting. Now this is 11 votes out of, you know, how many hundreds of people are in the user group and how many people are in this meeting too. So nevertheless, the people who vote have a voice, right? And that's how democracy works, right? If you don't vote, you can't complain. And that works, and that's very a very timely comment, I'll say as well, right? All right, I'm gonna, oh, that was the last question. I did have one more question, but I don't know if it's going to let us ask it. Okay, so still more shorter questions is still heavily in the lead. I was just capturing the information so that I don't lose it in case, I don't know what happens when I hit stop. I had one last question. Yeah, let's say stop, you can do it. Which was a meeting frequency. So let me see if I can, I'll see if I can get this thing to stop and start again, then maybe I'll ask that question later. But just to see if people want, you know, do they prefer this once a quarter scenario, or would they rather have like, you know, meetings where we literally have just one topic, but we do it once a month, right? That kind of thing. Or is it better to kind of package it together into a quarterly meeting? I will ask that question at some point once we can get the direct poll working on that one. But in the meantime, we will move on. So thank you everyone for joining and for participating in the poll. The Q&A already, remember, is in the chat. But with that, we're going to move to our first session, which is from the Chicago Police Department. So I'm going to stop sharing and you two can take it away. I don't know who wants to go first, but thank you for being here.
Thank you, Alex. Good morning, everyone. Let me share my screen. Okay. What's this? All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Oksana Fearon, and I work as Chief Operation Analyst at Chicago Police Department. And I'm here today with Amir Kazi, who is one of our Tableau administrators. We both obviously work for the Chicago Police Department. We would like to welcome you. And we would like to talk today about Tableau Center of Practice at Chicago Police Department and how Tableau and creating Tableau Center of Practice helped us to improve public safety with data analytics. I'm going to start quickly with overview of Chicago Police Department. As you know, or maybe not, there are 5 areas, 22 districts, and 274 beats that Chicago Police Department covers within the city of Chicago. Currently, there are about 13,187 officers and 820 civilians employed by CPD, and I'm one of the civilian employees. And Chicago Police Department is the second largest police department in the United States. And just which means that the amount of data being collected is enormous. And you can do a lot of really great things. And we've been doing, I think, a lot of great things with this data. So when we think about the analytics, analytics obviously is very different for each organization in private and public sector. In our particular case, we use analytics to identify patterns and trends and make organizational decisions to better CPD. So for example, you know, if we analyze training of CPD members and we see that there is a need somewhere, then we can address this need, right? Or there are some resources or workforce allocation. It's really great that we can use analytics to really drive policing within Chicago. Just to give you a little bit of the history, in 2018, Chicago Police Department decided to create data analytics unit. And kind of data analytics unit would live within the Strategic Data Analytics Division, or SDAT. That was due to the need to consolidate the department's data analytics capacity. And also, maybe some of you have read in the news, it was due to consent decree. So consent decree is a lawsuit against Chicago Police Department, and because of this lawsuit, there is an order right now mandating broad police reform within Chicago Police Department, including a lot of reforms that require using data, analyzing data, providing the insights. So because of that, it was really decided that something needed to be created, the division, Strategic Analytics Division, to address these issues. And you can see on the screen right now, just there are there are three parts of Strategic Data Analytics Unit. We have Data Analytics Group. Amir and myself are part of this group. We also have Data Fulfillment and Analytics Group. This particular group responds to FOIA, Freedom of Information requests. And we also have SDC operations. So these analysts, they are embedded within districts, within various districts throughout the Chicago. So if you live in District 1 or District 18, you probably have a DSC room with the analysts embedded there. So as I mentioned earlier, so once this division was created, and that's when, for example, I joined Chicago Police Department in 2018, about 2 years ago. The main goal was to consolidate the reporting of various metrics and also to consolidate tech talent and foster a data-driven culture. So when we came on board, and that was really unprecedented at that point, that Chicago Police Department hired a number of civilian analysts, we quickly realized that the amount of data being collected and produced within CPD is huge, but also the reporting that they do, the structure is vast, and then the number of reports that each unit or division have to produce on a regular basis is great. So, a lot of them have to report on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly basis. So we really needed some technology that we can use to help to automate these reporting processes. We looked into different products, and Tableau obviously was just above and beyond everything, and that's why we decided to go with Tableau. And I apologize if I cannot see the chat. I think I will, if it's okay with everyone, we will address the questions in the end of the presentation. But anyway, going back, so the need was addressed by acquiring Tableau products in 2018. So at this point, we have been using Tableau at CPD for about 2 years. We use Tableau Desktop and Tableau Prep. We have Tableau servers, and Amir will talk a little bit more about them. Once we started using Tableau within Chicago Police Department, we realized that the interest was too much. There were a lot of analysts, a lot of CPD members using it, and this initial Tableau server that we created really became, I'm sure you've heard from Tableau, like a Wild West. There were no rules and regulations. Different dashboards were published and data sources, like the updates were failing, like nobody knew who created what. So to address this issue, we decided to and to kind of avoid this bottleneck, we decided to really figure out how we can create the structure within Chicago Police Department, because that's what happened. Let me go back here. And I think this visualization was used during one of the Tableau conferences in the past that, you know, what happens when organization acquires a particular technology, even if it's the best technology in the world. So this is the product that you're striving to achieve, right? This perfect cake. And then you have all the ingredients and you have all the tools, like with Tableau, right? They have fantastic support. They can provide for you great community, right? You can ask questions and so on. But then somehow in the end, that's what you get, right? Instead of this perfect cake, you get the Wild West or get this imperfect cake. And this can be due multiple reasons, like you didn't have proper implementations, maintenance of architecture, standardized process, proper continuous training, technical support and assistance, communications, development of skill, and culture change, right? Culture change is crucial, it's very important, especially with large organizations. It's not that easy to switch. You can say like, okay, yes, we are eager to build a data-driven culture, but how can you actually do it? Yeah, acquiring great products or technologies are important, but then how you sustain it, right? And that's why we started looking at some of the solutions. I'm sure you've heard probably about at the head of our unit, Sabi Khan. He looked into private and public sector organizations and how they did it. I think he met with Allstate, Accenture, and you know, other places, and we decided to go with establishing Tableau Center of Practice within CPD. And it has been very successful, and it has really helped us quite a bit to deploy Tableau. So briefly, you can see right now, there are several parts of Tableau Center of Practice we have right now. We have our analytics and data governance team. We have onboarding and consultation team. We have training and support team, infrastructure team, and community. So for us, it all starts with onboarding and consultation team. So if anybody at CPD is interested in getting Tableau licenses, in starting using Tableau, they would contact this team originally, and they will help them with adoption and kind of the first steps. Then we also have the analytics and data governance team. That's crucial, and I'm sure a lot of you know that, because again, as I mentioned, at CPD, we have a lot of data. We actually store it in Oracle Data Warehouse on premises, and we have a few members who really know a lot about the tables, the schemas, and you know, when you start working with Tableau, you're connecting to those tables, you're building the products, or you're building your flows. This group is crucial for us. We also have training and support team, and I'm the person who leads this particular team. For example, we developed a 53-page onboarding curriculum with CPD data sets and exercises for new users. So we're not just giving licenses out. What we do is, if you would like to get Tableau license and you're a CPD member, you first need to go through 2-day in-person training. And we're using this curriculum specifically with CPD data sets. And during the second day, we're actually using the data sets that they use at their work, you know, because they all come, they might be from detectives unit or force review division or training academy, you know. So then during the first day, we really introduced them to the basics of Tableau. And during the second day, we try to use their own data. So if they come from police academy, you know, we in advance identify the data they can use from our data warehouse, or maybe they have it stored somewhere else to create the products. And so when they go back, they already have something started. We also have our fantastic infrastructure team. We have our now 2 Tableau administrators, Joe Candela. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it today. And Amir, Kazi recently joined him, and he's fantastic. And we have our community. So we have our community within Chicago Police Department. We have had already, I think, a couple of Tableau user groups. And we have forum where members can publish their questions and we can answer them really quickly. So we are really trying to after the training is done, after everybody gets their Tableau license, that we're really trying to engage everyone. And that has been kind of a challenge for us, right? You know, sometimes we can say like, oh yes, our organization gives, you know, has this many licenses or that many users, but are they actually producing products? Are they producing something meaningful that, you know, so that's what the community is there for, to really kind of stay on top of things and make sure if they need further training or they need some help with connecting to our data warehouse or publishing to our Tableau servers, we're there for them to help them, to keep them excited, to keep them going. All right, I think at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Amir, and he is going to talk a little bit about the infrastructure that we have within Chicago Police Department.
All right, thank you, Oksana. I'm assuming you can hear me. Let me know if that's not the case. All right, so today I'll be talking about three different things. First, the Wild West that Oksana mentioned. Second, the low-hanging fruit. And thirdly, how to automate the boring stuff with Python. And I promise all these three things are related to Tableau. This is still a Tableau user group, and we will be talking about Tableau. So first, in terms of the Wild West. So here I wanted to first talk about how our infrastructure is built. Initially, when we started, we had this Tableau server that we were using for uploading for general use. Then later on, we created this other server called 6.7 that we refer to its IP address, 6.7, for maintenance and for governance, essentially, of proper workbooks. So over time, what happened was that a lot of people started using, I'm not sharing yet, I will share something soon, right? I'm just talking, don't worry about that, Alex. But so to continue, so what happened was that over time on 6.6, right, this previous version of the server, this previous server, people started uploading all their content. There was no governance. There was complete lack of any law and order and structure. And over time, then we had these two parallel systems that were being built up. One which was official, the other sort of semi-official. And that's bad. That's bad because we want to make sure that everything's clean and structured and organized and we're all on the same page. So to combat this institutional inertia where there were two different things going on and we didn't change anything. So eventually what we did over the last 6 months, we made a plan that we would migrate all of this content from this other Wild West server to our one internal server called 6.7, where you would be able to create different folders, permissions, groups, and have this flow process through which we could organize everything. So for this process, to migrate content from 6.6 to 6.7, we used a combination of Python and Tableau REST APIs. So I'll just quickly share my screen and show you what those are so that you all can use them as well. These are very useful. So for example, if you just go to Tableau Server Client for Python and you, for example, click workbooks, you could read all about this and see how you can get a workbook item, interact between your code in Python, for example, and the server, and how you can import this package called Tableau Server Client that Tableau has given us and get different things. So for example, you can connect to the Tableau server using code without having to actually manually log into the server. And theoretically through that, you could do different things such as get the ID of a workbook or even publish the workbook or download the workbook. Similarly, with data sources, you could do the exact same thing. So this is what we did essentially. We had over 100 different workbooks on this Wild West server. We had over 20 different data sources. And instead of doing this manually, we would click on each and every different workbook and each and every different data source and download all of these different things. What we instead did was we used these REST APIs along with Python and just coded the whole thing. It would just automatically get all of this content and then upload it to the other server. So through this process of these APIs, what we were able to do was, I'll just stop sharing, what we were able to do was then migrate it to one particular server. And now what we have is more control, more governance, more law and order in terms of how we maintain these servers. So this is where I would recommend that you all look into Python REST APIs and see how we can interact with Tableau using those. And through that, we can do that. We can have more structure in how we maintain and administer our architecture in Tableau. The second thing I'd like to talk about, and if there are any questions, please feel free to ask. I'll be monitoring that as well. So the second thing I'd like to talk about is the low-hanging fruit here. So this is what we had on the internal side, right? We had two different servers. One was structured, the other not so much. But we also had an external facing data source server. So as you can all understand and appreciate, we have some content that needs to be kept confidential, whereas others which we want to share with the public. And same with our dashboards as well. So we had a public server as well. So we had an internal server and a public server. The problem used to happen was that every time Tableau came up with an update, we would have no testing site. So we would automatically update our servers. Now, the problem with that is, even though updates are generally good, what then happens is that sometimes that leads to certain problems for certain people in terms of any feature not working or any workbook not working. And that makes people upset. And we don't like to make people upset. You know, as Tableau server administrators, we want everyone to be happy and no one to blame us. So naturally, what we did, and this was a very simple solution, that's why it's called a low-hanging fruit. What we did was that for each of these production servers, we created a test server that mirrors these production servers. And so every time there's an update to Tableau and Tableau servers and Tableau desktops, etc., we first try it on the test servers. And then if that works, everything works fine, then we move on and do the same thing to the production servers. This is again something very obvious, very simple, something you would argue we should have been doing this from the start, but this is something that we did over the last 6 months to make sure that we have fewer problems on that end. Another low-hanging fruit that we had was in terms of increasing this number of nodes. So previously we had fewer nodes, and so every time there were lots of people working on the Tableau server and there were more jobs, there used to be crashes every now and then. So increasing the number of nodes helped in that as well. The third thing we did on that end was we used a bunch of Tableau tools as well. For example, Tableau Server Administrator is a particular tool that we have as well. And we've incorporated that as well into our management on our management of how people are using the server, how people are using, what sort of workbooks take up the most time, etc. And that allows us to make sure that we have an efficient process to begin with. So by creating these test servers, what we've done is essentially we've allowed for better maintenance and better updates and fewer crashes. So that's a very low-hanging fruit that we've used to make sure that everything works fine. So the third thing that we've done is in terms of automating the boring stuff. And that's where we've used Python as well. So for example, let's look at what happened before. With Tableau servers, what's most important thing, I would argue, is the backup. Because the Tableau server can crash at any particular moment if something goes wrong. We don't know, right? We hope that doesn't, right? It ideally never should, but sometimes it does. That is why it's important to maintain a backup in case something happens. So, and each of these backups in our case was taking at least 60 GB of data. What we were doing was that we had a bash script that was downloading this, that was running a TSM command line tool and downloading this data for us on a day-to-day basis. Over time, what used to happen at the end of every week, because each backup was 60 gigabytes, what used to happen was that we would have lots of this data and it would expand our memory in our computers. And therefore somebody would have to manually go and delete this every 3 or 4 days. Now this is boring, this is repetitive, and this is something that human beings are too intelligent to do. And that is why we ask machines to do them for us. So for that, what we did was we used a combination of TSM and Python to be able to create this manual system whereby every day, the Python script would then check and see if there are any backups that are beyond a certain date, and it would automatically delete them. And we would run this on a Windows scheduler so that it would happen automatically, regardless of if anybody's inside the building or not. And this was especially important over the last few months with COVID-19, that a lot of our police officers were out on the streets, right? And we didn't always have someone indoors to keep a check on this. And that is why it's important to make sure that we've got systems in place that are sustainable beyond just the people who are managing them. And so I'll share my screen and show you what we did there. It's a script that I wrote for this, so that, and it's on GitHub as well if anybody wants to look at it, github.com/Amir Kazi, and you can find this repository. There are 2 scripts here. You can read the README here. Essentially, there was Tableau backup data.cmd, and the second cleaning_backups.py, which is a Python file. So essentially what happened was that in this command line, we first, for example, command script, we first ran the Python script, which would clean up any prior backups that we had. And then after that, we used the TSM maintenance backup statement to download a newer backup every single day. So this is that, and you are welcome to look at it and even take this code if it helps you. It's all open source. And then this is the cleaning backups file, where, for example, you can set the number of days that you want since the backup has last been deleted. For example, in our case, we wanted 4 backups to exist at all times, and we wanted backups for at least the last 4 days. You can change that to 1 day to 10 days, entirely up to you. And then based on this, it would then clean the files and make sure that any files that are beyond that certain number of days over here and over here, it would then remove that. So that's another way in which we've automated this system to exist without our interference and without our involvement, so that we can do other things. Because essentially, as we all know, that city government is resource starved. We always have more projects than we have the time available to do it. So anytime when we can automate these things, it helps us. And so that's where that comes in. So what have we done overall, and what have in the last 6 months? We've removed the Wild West, and we've tried to create some sort of law and order. We've focused on the low-hanging fruit and made sure that there are updates and maintenance that's happening without too much messiness. And thirdly, we've tried to automate as many things as possible so that we can do the other things to help the people of the city. So those are the 3 things that we've done over the last 6 months. So that's it from my end. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll give it back to Alex.
Just really quickly before we end, I think we wanted to show a couple of Tableau dashboards that we have available. Unfortunately, we cannot really share a lot of internal products that we have done, and we have done many. Again, we are looking at the workforce allocation. For example, for COVID, we've done a dashboard, and that's why Tableau was crucial, because we already have everything in place. We have a pipeline in place, so we're able to connect to the data and to build the dashboard really quickly to identify within certain districts, the police officers, how many of them, how many CPD members were getting sick, to make sure we have enough staff. And if we didn't have enough staff, how we can move the members around or provide help or send sanitation unit. So Tableau was crucial for that. But I mentioned consent decree, and we created a few projects that are available on our dashboard. I'm sorry, on our official CPD website, I should say. Let me just share it with you, and I'm going to just show it to you really quickly. Alex, how much time do we have left?
We have another 9 minutes on the schedule, and we do have some questions out there that I can share on the screen with you, but go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So if you go to Chicago Police Department website, if you go on to statistics and data tab and select data dashboards, you can see we have several dashboards available here. I can walk you quickly through this use of force dashboard, for example. I worked quite a bit on that, obviously with other members of our team. But if you ever looked at the consent decree document that's available online, it outlines a lot of data requirements that CPD is required to fulfill. For example, we have this paragraph 581 or 582, and according to paragraph 581, beginning within 180 days of effective date, CPD will publish on at least a monthly basis aggregated and incident level data for the reportable uses of force. So this dashboard is going to look at the reportable uses of force within the city of Chicago. Also, there are multiple requirements to look at the reportable uses of force at the citywide, district, neighborhood, and ward level through graphs, charts, and other data visualizations. So Tableau was perfect for that, right? Because we could go through, let me just show again, through all of these requirements. There are many, many of them. If you scroll down, there's just, they go on and on. We can collect all of them, and then we can, think about what data we need, right? Build our backend in our Tableau prep, and then we can create these multiple visualizations to fulfill all those requirements and submit them and to pass. So I created several tabs here. So we have summary, we have totals, timeline, location. force options, and subject demographics. And again, this is using the use of force. It will show you how many CPD members used force since 2015 to present. This data updates on a monthly basis. You can see last update date here is just happened. So we have the numbers of total force incidents, and then so police officers are required to complete tactical response reports. So the data comes specifically from these reports. And then we have total CPD members that were involved in using use of force and total number of subjects. If you're interested to know exactly how everything is being calculated, we have an example here for you. You can click on different links here. For example, if you click on this hand, you can download use of force policy. And then again, if you scroll down, you will be able to see various numbers in here. So we also have a totals page that can show a little bit more information. For example, you can compare the number of use of force incidents to the number of events or the number of arrests within Chicago Police Department. You can see that the number of use of force reports kind of have been going down since 2015. And you all know in Tableau, if you hover over, you'll be able to see the tooltip with more information. For example, here, when you hover over the number of use of force reports visualization, you can see the information regarding some trainings provided throughout the years. So you might attribute that some of the trainings that we provide on a regular basis really helped to decrease the number of uses of force within CPD. There is also a timeline tab where you can look more at, again, selected time periods and selected districts. And you can see, for example, here we're looking at the TRS bar month and day of the week. We can see that the use of force was, in general, primarily used during the warmer months, right? We know that the crime usually goes up in Chicago from May till it becomes really colder. And we can see that also the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, right, had a high number of uses of force. But then obviously, if you select different districts, it might change for your particular area. So you can explore here a little bit more. Location, you saw in the consent decree that they're requiring us to display various information by community area, by ward, by district. So Tableau was perfect for that. We were able to build multiple maps. So right now you're looking at the community area map, which you probably know a little bit better, right? If you live within the city of Chicago, you know where the loop is. So you can hover over this area and you'll see the number of uses of force within the loop. You can hover during different areas. You can click on the map and it will filter demographic information and age information for subjects for you. And then you can switch between different maps. So now we're looking at the ward map. You can also look at police district. And you can look at police beat. So we have a total of 4 maps on this particular dashboard. And you can really kind of drill down and see for a particular beat if you know the beat you're living in and get more information this way. We also, Tableau, I always say I love Tableau. I don't think there's anything you cannot do in Tableau. Like, for example, like one of the comments I had, people said, oh, it was like too busy with all these community names on the map. So I created this little feature where you can show labels, or you can hide labels and just get a cleaner map in here. And then obviously everything is interactive. You can hover over, you can click on it. It will filter everything for you. And a couple of last things, we have force options. A lot of people are interested in how many firearms were used, or tasers, or OC sprays, and so on. You can also just, once you're selecting anything, like maybe you select a firearm, you can see by community areas the numbers. You can select again ward or police district, and everything will change automatically for you. And the last but not least is the subject demographics information. Here we created a parameter where you can switch between gender, race, and then race and gender, right? Because sometimes it's interesting to see, okay, so as far as the gender, we have primarily the force was used against male, and then, 15% female. And then we look at the race information, we can see primarily African American, that's the highest percentage where of subjects. But then, for example, what about race and gender, right? You can combine and create a parameter in Tableau. So when you can hover over, you can see more information. And we're actually going to have this is like, multiple iterations. If you worked with Tableau, right, for a while, you always create multiple iterations. So we actually have an additional tab coming really soon where you will be able to download the data, the incident level data on your own, and it will download into a CSV file for you, and you will be able to analyze this data yourself. Okay, I think that's all we have. I think we're running out of time, and we would love to answer any of your questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now, and I'm going to turn it over to Alex.
Sure, I will share my screen, and then you can see the questions up there on the screen. And I have them in top voting, descending order, which is not a whole lot of votes, but you can look at this list and see what you'd like to answer, but they're right.
Would you zoom in?
I'm sorry?
Would you zoom into this? I can't really see.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so it's a little bit hard to see.
So is Tableau used as the enterprise-wide reporting tool or only for self-service in your org, is the first question.
So it's definitely as enterprise-wide reporting tool within our organization. It's not, it's like both, so it's both in our organization.
I'll just put it's both. That's fine. It's not really a question. I've just posted a comment about it. What steps do you take to keep the users engaged as you roll out new reports, data sources, workbooks, etc.?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So we created a forum that we use where we can post different information about upcoming reports, data sources, or workbooks. We also organize user groups, CPD user groups. As I mentioned, we have had 2 at this point, and that's a great resource for us where we can really, share the work that has been done. And then we had different presenters, both analysts, but also CPD members. I mean, we're so proud. We have onboarded several CPD units at this point, such as Force Review Division and Police Academy. And some of those CPD members have never used Tableau before. They were not very technical, but now they were able to get going and start, and they were able to present at our Tableau user group. So yes, Tableau forum, Tableau user group, and then really encouraging our Tableau champions within different, districts or divisions or units, so they can also spread the word among their team members.
Next one is, how do you handle server updates? What challenges have you expected or had?
Amir.
All right. So this is a tricky one because the thing is, we can have an update, but it's very hard to know if something's broken unless somebody tells us it's broken. So I think the biggest challenge we've had so far is, let's say we had an update, we think everything's working, right? But because there's so many different workbooks, so many different data sources, so many different prep flows, right? We can't possibly go and check through all of these and see if they're all working. So that's, I think, the biggest challenge that we've had is there a way to go about, knowing if something's broken without actually asking the people who've created them to check and confirm and let us know. So I don't know if Tableau has it. If it does, let me know. I'd love to know. That's why we're here, to learn new things. That's the biggest challenge I've had. The other challenge that I would say is that it's important to make sure that your dev and your prod environments have the same characteristics, have the same features, have the same specifications. Because if they are different, then what happens is that even if your test environment is working, right? If it's different, then and something goes wrong in the production environment, you don't know why that happened because they're different. So it's always important in general to make sure that your dev and your prod environments have the same specifications. So I wouldn't say that's a challenge, but that's something that we keep in mind when we are updating or handling updates generally. I hope that answered your question. Feel free to comment and let us know if that didn't. Happy to give more details.
We're a little bit over time, but there's 3 more questions. You can choose to answer what you like there if you can quickly, and if not, we can always take it offline.
Amir, would you like to address sensitive information? I think we know how to handle it on Tableau server. We've done it quite a bit.
Right. So there are different things, right? So first of all, we can have different sites on a server, right? So depending on the access, we can have different sites that prevent different users from accessing different content. But then even within a site, we can have different permissions for each workbook and each data source. And so we can make sure that only a certain group of people or certain people can access those particular workbooks or data sources. And so there are various different ways we can set up these permissions to ensure that nobody else has access to sensitive content.
Okay, let's see here. The size of your teams was already answered earlier. So I'm hiding that one. So do you guys take a daily backup? That was the last question.
Yes, we do take a daily backup. And like we mentioned earlier, because we've automated the whole process, it's fairly easy for us to change it from a daily to a monthly or whatever process that we want. But we do this on a daily basis. And that is why you should automate, always. That is all.
I'll ask one since we're here. Are all your reports live? Are they all hyper files, or is there a mix? How do you guys like to run things as far as that goes?
Sure. Some of them are live, but a lot of them using the extracts when we publish. Because a lot of times, like you saw this user force dashboard, tons of data being used, a lot of connections. So live, it's a little bit trickier for us. So we usually schedule and, run updates on them, maybe, daily, depending on particular product, on particular dashboard, daily, weekly, or, monthly basis to satisfy the needs. Amir, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think that's sufficient. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you both for presenting. I appreciate your time, and that was really, really interesting to see what Chicago Police Department's up to. It's a very real use case, and something that people can relate to. So I appreciate that, and thank you very much. With that, we are a few minutes past time, but we are ready for our next presenter.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And I believe next we have, let me just double check, but I'm pretty sure we have Jess next. We do. Jess, if you're ready.
I am ready. Awesome. Okay, let me get my screen shared here. And thanks for having me back, Alex. Happy to be here. Just a little intro. Again, I presented at the last Tableau user group, but if you weren't on the September user group, my name is Jess Lella. I am a solutions engineer here at Tableau. So what that means is I help people get started with the product, help with implementations, do enablement, training, webinars like this. And today we are going to talk about what's new and what's coming, some of those TC or Tableau conference-ish highlights from last month, and plenty of time for questions at the end. All right, so we'll get started with quick little agenda. We'll go through 2020.3. That's our latest release. And then, of course, we will not leave out some of those Tableau conference highlights. Again, we'll demo what we can and we'll discuss what we can't demo. All right, so first up in 2020.3, I'll put up all of the features that came out in this release. I'll leave this on the screen for a minute. You guys could take a little peruse. Anything that is bracketed, that means we're going to talk about it, demo it, at least discuss it. And in every release, we usually have one feature that's kind of like our marquee feature. In this case, it was writing to an external database from Tableau Prep. So if you are using Prep and you had that use case, you're probably really excited to see this in 20.3. I will be demoing it as well. Some of my other personal favorite was the in operator. I'll show you guys that. But a lot of what was in .3 was a lot of like improvements. We're not going to go deep into the improvements, but just make a note of them. Again, ask data, explain data, relationships. You've probably seen those already, so I'm not going to go there, but just be aware that they're there. So without further ado, let's talk about that right to external database. So for anyone using Prep, again, I think most of you have probably heard about Prep. It's been out for over 2 years now. It's our light ETL tool, how we do data prep, transformation, cleaning, all that stuff. We had gotten the feedback that people loved it, but their use case was specific to wanting to write that data prep back to their database. Before .3, you could write to a published data source or a CSV or an extract. And now if you are, again, it's only for these, I think it's 9 or so databases, you can now create new tables, replace tables, or append to those tables. And it is actually pretty easy to use. And I'll show you a little demo here. So when I was getting ready to show this to you guys, I was anticipating to run into some roadblocks, but I was pleasantly surprised that the first go at it, I had success. All right, so what's new here? So we're talking about just the output stage. Again, think about this like you do all your flows, you make your joins, you do your cleaning, and then you're ready to put this data somewhere. So this is what is new. You'll notice we can now choose database table. So I'll go ahead, I'll choose that. And just like anything, you're going to need to authenticate. There is this collection of databases that we can, again, we are enabled to do this. So I'll sign in here real quick. And we will get this written to my little local SQL server. We'll call this, I'll just call this tug data, simple. And we'll create a new table. And there we go, it's just simple as that. Then we run it, it's running the flow, and it's also writing to our database. So let's check that it worked. There's that database. Let's make sure it's refreshed, master table, tables, and there it is. So it's really that simple. So again, go ahead, check that out. Again, it's pretty simple to use. And that has been the real big release marquee feature in 20.3. And if you're not using Prep, definitely check it out because we are in every release, we're adding more and more to it. We're really investing heavily in this Tableau Prep space. But moving on, what else came out in 20.3 that people are excited about? Grant role on sign-in. Now, I'll caveat, this is probably more interesting if you're on the admin side of the house. If you're a developer, this might not be too relevant, but I will note it because this was a feature that a lot of customers were asking for. And it's pretty much as simple as it sounds. So if you imagine you're running a big deployment, hundreds, thousands of users, they sign into the server initially. Before 20.3, they would have to be either manually given a license, viewer, explorer, creator, or when your AD sync hit, they'd be licensed. Well, now just with clicking this little checkbox, grant role and sign in, these groups can automatically get a site role when they sign in. So this saves admins a tremendous amount of time. I've heard some customers accelerated their upgrades just to get this feature. So although it seems simple and just a small little checkbox, it is a very powerful feature. So just be aware of that, again, for my admins on the line here. And another exciting feature that we have in this release is extracts, extract refresh based on subscriptions. So essentially, we have a new option for how you get your subscriptions to your email. So before 20.3, you would select a schedule. And again, I'll show you this in a demo in a minute here. But the problem with that, and as again, anyone, especially my admins here, know that it's not always a perfect balance. Sometimes our extracts get delayed. let's say you have an extract, really important one, that kicks off Monday morning. You get your subscription, just an hour later, but that extract's delayed. Well, now all of a sudden you're looking at stale data. You might go into a meeting, have numbers from last week. Nobody's happy. You're not happy, admins aren't happy. So this feature hopefully resolves that problem where you're only going to get that subscription when the extract is kicked off and completed. Right now, it's only working for a single extract, but we are investing in having this work for more than one. So this is interesting to you. Be on the lookout for that. And let's dive into Tableau Desktop now. So enough slides, and let's get into some demos. And I'll talk about the in operator here. So if you joined me on 30 tips in 30 minutes last month, you saw I was on a national park kick. I'm still on it. Again, I like to travel. We can't travel. So now I'm all about the national parks like everyone else in the country, it feels. So I started making this tracker, like where have I been? And it's been kind of a fun little side project. But I wanted to capture, where have I been on the map? So how can I color code them, for example, all the places that I've been out of these 62 parks? And we are going to use the in operator to do this. And as I said, this is actually my favorite feature in 20.3 because I just find it so useful, especially anyone who has a SQL background. Sometimes there's been so many times where I've been making calcs and I'm like, can I just say in? Instead, you're making some big if then statement and you're like, this just seems too complicated. And this in operator works with sets, groups, data fields. So we'll make a quick one here and I'll call this, have I been to this park? And it's this simple. So obviously we're talking about parks. So his park name in, there it is. And I'll save you guys the hassle of watching me write all this out. There you go. You just say, is it in these fields? Again, no messy if logic statements. It just works. Now I can drop this really anywhere. So clearly I've got a long way to go if I want to visit every park in the country. Again, and we can use this creatively. Let's replace my little metric here. So we could use this on a filter. We'll say true, just like any calc you're used to. Again, we can filter it. We can use it in our marks card, and I've been to 9 parks. So that's 15%. So on my way, but a long way to go. You can also use the in operator with sets. So I'll show you this one real quick and perhaps a more relevant example. So here's Chicago, some addresses that are on the market, and maybe I have my criteria really set. I know that I only want to live in a house that's at least 1,800 square feet, but it's under 700 grand. So this is a combined set here. So how could I really easily say, well, is this address in my criteria? Yes or no? Well, the in operator to the rescue again. So we'll just say is address in this set, just like that. I'll say, I don't know, does this fit? And now I'll just put this on text. I've got some action filters working in the background. And as I select an address, it will tell me real quick, yes or no, is this in my criteria? So, as we get to the ritzier parts of town by the loop, again, obviously it's probably out of my budget, but that's okay. I can find somewhere that is. So that's the in operator. Again, a lot of ways you can use it. I'm using it all the time and I'm a big fan of it. So just 2 quick use cases there of how you would use it. On the same subject of calculations, functions, operators, we also have a new predictive modeling functions that are used like calculations. So not all of us can be like Alex with his data science background or Amir with his Tableau skills. I'm fall out of that category. I don't have either of those skills. And we realized that there was that gap in Tableau where we had people like myself who, understand it well enough, but I'm not going to write in R script or a Python script to do my modeling. So we made calculations that do that for you. So this use case here is Based on health expenditures for countries, each dot is a country. Is there a correlation to female life expectancy? Well, let's pop open that calculation. So these are the two new calcs. We have models percentile and model quantile. So that will return a probability, so 0 to 1, 0 less probable, 1 more probable, and we'll return that metric and it will give me an idea of, again, what is a correlation. So again, life expectancy is my first input, and that's based on health expenditure. I just dropped this on my tooltip. We've got some other color coding going on, but I'm not going to talk about that too much. But we can see, for example, the Ivory Coast. They don't spend a lot on healthcare. Their life expectancy is very low, hence that low indicator. Whereas Cuba, which I thought was interesting because Cuba has actually a very, very strong healthcare system. We see that indicator exponentially increase and quite a bit more spending. And obviously, life expectancy is a bit higher. So be aware of that. Again, there's a lot more you can do with this predictive modeling function. I can drop in a few links to some resources, but I've seen a few people using it pretty creatively. Let's talk about some server new features as well. So let me go ahead and grab my little demo server. So one thing you might notice, anyone who has upgraded already, is we have a new shared with me. It's just another way for you to organize your content. So dashboards, metrics, data sources that have been shared to you by someone else. So why don't we go ahead and share something to myself. Again, if you didn't know about the sharing capabilities, it's that simple. You just share. I'll share it to myself. I could say, we need to check, I don't know, profits, whatever it is, little message. And now that will show up in my shared with me, along with anything else that's been shared with me. And I can see who shared it, when, and I can jump right to that dashboard. So again, just another way to kind of organize your content, be able to keep it all straight, what's important, what people are trying to get your attention on. And it's, pretty handy to have that there. I also talked about the subscriptions on Extract Refresh. Just real quick, just so you know where to find it, should be pretty self-explanatory. Of course, up and subscribe, you can go ahead and you'll notice that under frequency, we have when data refreshes, so that's what's new. So you'll see that other option there. So if you're wondering what that's all about, it's based on those extract refreshes. That's when you'll get this dashboard subscribed and sent to your email. All right, so again, quite a bit in 2020.3. I know we don't have time to cover it all, but those are kind of those main features that people were either kind of excited about, they were in our ideas forum, and we got it into this release. So next up, we'll talk about what's coming down the pipeline. So TC highlights, and I will caveat that a lot of this I can't actually demo because we don't have the developer builds, or they're kind of pretty far out into the future. So I will demo what I can, but we'll discuss what I can't show you yet. So Adam, he's always our kind of keynote speaker, Adam Selipsky, our CEO. So he highlighted quite a few things in his keynote. He talked about relationships. He highlighted metrics that came out this year. And he also spent some time talking about writing to that external database, which I just showed you. Now, I'm not going to go deep on any of these because I think most of you have seen them. I know my colleague Jeff did a deep dive on relationships and metrics, I think early summer. But if you are curious, we can definitely talk about that after. But what I really want to talk about is what you haven't seen yet. So we talked about our developers come on stage. That's kind of one of the funnest things about Tableau conference is we do a roadmap, what features to get excited about later down the line. And they showed us Slack integration. So soon, for those of you who have Slack internally, you'll be able to get notifications directly in Slack, and they will be actionable. So you could click on it and be brought to Tableau. When's this coming? We're still not sure yet. So TBD usually means it's probably not going to be Q1, maybe Q2, maybe Q3, but don't hold me to that. So be on the lookout for that. And we also have another way of organizing your content on server. So I know I showed you shared with me. So soon, and this is supposed to come out in our next release in 20.4, you'll have a concept of collections. So easiest way to think about it is like a playlist. So if you wanted to move your content around or keep it in a separate place, you'd have to either duplicate it, you'd have to republish it to that folder. It was doable, but it was kind of messy. Now you'll just be able to add it to your collection. And again, it's just a great way to reuse content. You're not multiplying data sources, workbooks. That's something to be on the lookout for soon. And along that vein, we also have the concept of personal space coming as well. So think about that as truly your own private folder project, should I say. Nobody else can come in there, see what you're doing, you're working on something, or it's very confidential. You can rest assured that it truly is private. We have ways to work around that with, project permissioning, nested projects, but it does take a little admin work to do that. And we're just going to kind of avoid that whole process and have your own little corner carved out for you. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully next release, I have seen some beta builds and this is in there. So look out for it on your next upgrade. And we also have enhanced notifications coming. So many of you know that we do have that little bell at the top, which is meant to be our alerting, our notification center, but we're pretty transparent that it's not great. I personally barely actually look at it. We are going to improve it. So we're going to have a nice chronology, actionable alerts. You'll really see who's getting your attention, who's doing what, and it's just going to be a better experience. Also, autosave is coming with web authoring. So any of you who are doing web authoring, we're all working from home, your internet cuts out, your laptop dies. Oh no, you just lost all your work. So we have autosave in desktop, and that is coming to web authoring very soon. Again, we were told early 2021, so maybe Q1, maybe Q2, but hopefully in those sooner releases. And we also have prep coming on the browser. So I just showed you prep. Again, that was living on my desktop. Soon, all of those flows, connecting to data, creating those cleaning steps, joining, whatever it is you need to do to get your data prepped, you can do that right on the browser in server, which is really a huge improvement. Personally, I've used prep and had to crunch some pretty big data sets. And when that's happening on your poor little laptop, you can very quickly run into freezing, again, CPU getting tied up. Let the big powerful server do the work for you. So that's coming soon. Again, a new security policies for real-level security is also supposed to be in this release. Look out for that. It's supposed to be out in 20.4. And I was excited. I was about to show this to you guys because last week I saw it was on my beta server and I was like, oh yay, something I can show you guys. And it looks like they clawed it back because now I'm not seeing it anymore. So, but it is very self-explanatory. It's going to look and feel just like prep and desktop, except you'll be on the browser. All right, and then last up, and I'll spend a little time explaining this one because it can be a little confusing. Tableau CRM was talked about quite a bit at conference, and you're going to see a big push for us to try to integrate with Salesforce. So this is all coming from when we got acquired from Salesforce last year. So Salesforce had their own analytics arm. It's called Einstein Analytics. That's now being rebranded to Tableau CRM. So when you hear Tableau CRM, I know it's a little confusing. That is kind of that legacy Einstein Analytics in Salesforce. And what we're trying to do, and again, it's going to be a big initiative, is get the two products working together, have them integrated so it's a seamless workflow. So I know some of you on the line might be thinking, well, I don't touch Salesforce, I'm never going to, so this is not relevant to me. I totally understand that, but you are going to keep hearing these terminologies come up. So it's probably worthwhile to at least kind of know what we're talking about when we're talking about EA, Einstein, Tableau CRM, what are all these things and how do you keep them straight? So I'll show you a little example of that. And again, we want to be able to bring Einstein into Tableau and Tableau into Salesforce and vice versa. So let me show you a little demo because that might make it all make a bit more sense. All right, so I am now in Salesforce, and this is a Tableau CRM dashboard. Now, it was not built in Tableau, even though it has the Tableau name. It was built in what's now going to be degraded as Einstein Analytics. But you'll notice in Salesforce, I can have my Tableau dashboards live side by side, be embedded directly in the CRM. And when you also hear us talking about Einstein, Tableau CRM, there's also Einstein predictions. So that is the concept of building these data models that have predictive analytics built in. Einstein can give you recommendations as well, as we can see here. So this is talking about prescriptions, likelihood to prescribe, how can we improve? So what we saw at TC was an example of, well, how do we get this nice prediction directly into Tableau? Well, let me show you something else. Now I'm in Tableau. I'm on my Tableau server. And this is looking at pharmaceuticals, more like drugs, drug sales, or therapy sales, should I say, and sales. And I have Einstein built, embedded directly in my Tableau dashboard. This is using extensions, which I can talk about in a bit. So what if I wanted to see how could I improve my ability to sell more of these different drugs? Well, notice it's also dynamic thanks to parameter actions. Now, what if I want to sell more of this Tersever drug? Well, maybe if I bump up the discount, and let me actually show you Einstein. Sorry, guys. This is Einstein built in Tableau. So this is Einstein predicting as I change my inputs, can I sell more of this therapy? And we can see how those numbers change. Again, right now we're predicted to sell 15,000. Einstein can make those adjustments with that model built, again, in that Salesforce CRM workflow, and we can bring that right into Tableau. So again, you're going to start hearing about this more. You know, when you hear that terminology, Tableau CRM, that's what we're talking about. I know it's confusing, even internally. We're still trying to keep our heads straight about what's what. And again, even if you don't use Salesforce or Einstein and don't ever plan to, just be aware that you're going to see a push to have the two working together more over time. So that was the big kind of features that were touched on in TC. You know, there's more to come, but I always like to show people 2020, or well, should I say what's new site. Again, this will highlight everything that I talked about in terms of the larger feature releases. And if you want to go deep on anything that we didn't talk about, you'll see all of them here. And most of them have a nice little GIF as well, can explain the features in more detail. So again, anything we didn't talk about today, I know we kind of had to go fast and we don't have time to talk about each and every one. You can find that here as well. We also have a developer preview. So you could say, you know, what's coming, Tableau, and join the beta and test out some of those new features. So like Amir was saying earlier with his test server, we'll have some customers that, you know, in advance, before we even release a version, they'll come into the developer and they'll start testing it ahead of time even. So you can get your hands on some of those new features as well in our pre-release program. So, all right, I think I tried to stay on time. I know I went a little fast. I have a tendency to do that. But if there's any questions, I'd love to take them, or any comments, and I will turn it over to you, Alex.
Yep, I'm just sharing my screen and you can see the questions on it. No one voted for any of them, so they're in just, I guess you could say, random order, but feel free to answer at will. There's some out there. Okay.
Let me see.
Can you read them, or
can you predict in Tableau without? Yeah, I'm reading without having the. Yeah. So if you don't have, so in order to get those predictions, you do need to build a model in Salesforce under Einstein Analytics. So you would need to have that component. So yeah, it's not that I'm using the Salesforce data connector. It's more that I need to be able to call a data model that was built in the CRM. So yeah, you would need it, unfortunately. But, you know, there are like I was showing and before, there are other ways to do predictions. So if you don't have Einstein, you don't necessarily need it if you want to do predictive analytics. Finance for integrating Tableau dashboards with Salesforce. Yeah, that's a great question. So for example, how did I get that Salesforce Tableau dashboard, sorry, embedded in Salesforce? I know I got to keep them straight myself. Yeah, there's documentation. I'll get some links. I'll send them over and I'll put them in the chat after this. But we do have a new way to embed Tableau dashboards in Salesforce. It's called the Lightning Web Component. Again, not to throw too much at you guys, but it is actually very easy now to embed dashboards directly into the CRM. All right. I know I don't want to take too much time here. So for Tableau MS Teams integration, that I have not heard much about. I know that Slack is very specific. So if you guys don't use Slack, you're probably like, hey, what about us? I think we're going to start with Slack, and then who knows, maybe we'll expand. But as of yet, I have not heard about Teams. So stay tuned on that. I don't think it's in the developer roadmap anytime soon, but that could change. Tableau prep, any reason we can't create new branches? So there is a new option where you can insert a step in the flow. That's relatively new. So try looking out for that. Being able to insert a new branch. So you could have a flow already built and then you're like, oh, wait, hold on, I actually need to aggregate. Rather than breaking everything, you can just insert that step. So look out for that. If you don't see it, try upgrading to one of the later releases. Awesome. I think that's everyone. I know I went fast, but Alex can share my information. If you guys have any more questions, I can always answer them offline.
Yeah, and if there's any links that you wanted to share, you can put them in the chat. I can also try and collate that stuff and send it out when I send out a follow-up as well.
Awesome, will do.
Well, thank you very much, Jess, for presenting for us again. I appreciate it, and we're going to jump into Sean next. You can take yourself off mute.
Hey, how's it going?
There you go. Hey.
All right.
Glad to have you.
Thanks. I'm gonna go ahead and take the screen from you. Not that you had it, but I'm taking it.
Go for it.
And so what I'm gonna talk about today are relationships, the new relationships that have come out in 2020.2. My name is Sean. I'm an analytics consultant for Interworks. And what that means is that when travel is allowed, I'm going all over the United States and helping clients do Tableau development and SQL development across various different industries and platforms. Outside of that, I run the Oklahoma City and the Tulsa Tableau user groups, so both local to Oklahoma. And then on my free time, I donate a lot of my consulting talents and Tableau and data science skills to an organization that I care a lot about, which is the Oklahoma City Homeless Alliance. My latest project with them was a data science driven one where we used survey results from about 4,000 of their clients and helped them create a customer segmentation model that broke their the people who visit regularly into categories and rank those categories based on their experience in homelessness. And the outcome of that was a publication in our local newspaper and magazine talking about some of the greater identifiers and shared experiences in what drives the homeless experience here in Oklahoma City. So that was a whole lot of fun, and I love that group and I love doing work in that area. I've been using Tableau for about 6 years, on and off, mostly daily. And so that's pretty much me. My daughter turned 1 yesterday, so that's pretty exciting too. So there's a lot of celebration. And today, like I said, we're going to talk about what's being called the Noodle and the relationships. First, we're gonna look at what that means in 2020.2. There's some new organization happening on sheet 1, and we're gonna talk about how you might not need LODs anymore or as frequently. You'll still need them. They're not going away. But the new relationships models definitely makes things a whole lot easier. I do have some things to think about over here linked. This workbook will be packaged and sent out to you by Alex after the call, but all of the Tableau, conference sessions are, I believe, still available online at their community events website. And then also, I like to link in here that since we are in like kind of a virtual time, you guys are more than welcome to come join the Oklahoma user group or visit other special interest user groups at the community events site at Tableau. I know one of the more interesting ones that I attended recently was a user group focused around Major League Sports. So they had representatives there from the various different Major League Sports organizations here in the United States speaking about their experience using Tableau and what they're doing to leverage it. But to get this conversation kicked off, I want to talk a little bit about why we're going to talk about the new relationships today. And largely the number one reason is that it's new. It's new to Tableau, and moving forward as you guys move through your upgrade cycles, I find larger organizations, they're just now getting around to the point where they're getting ready to upgrade to beyond 2020.2. And some smaller organizations that are a little bit more agile have already pivoted beyond that. Another reason why I want to talk about it is that new things are scary. I was really hesitant to dive into this material myself because I like being used to knowing what I'm doing. But I'm hoping that after we spend this time together here towards the end of this session today, that you guys come away with like a little bit more confidence if you haven't seen this or aren't familiar with the new relationships models, or maybe if you are, maybe you learned something a little bit new. So I am going to be doing kind of like a hands-on demo, nothing too complicated though. So, what I have put together here is also a list of links that I think are super useful for exploring relationships beyond what I might talk about today. So I've got a link to the data source that we're going to be using here. You just click on these boxes and they'll pop you right out into a new web browser. So the events, we have some stuff that we make at Interworks that should be available to you guys if you wanted to watch some of our webinars that we've made. Here's the links to all of the new features that we just learned about, and more specific details on some of the newer features and relationships and some tutorials. Another thing that I want to discuss is that with the relationships, what I view them as is a fantastic step towards reducing the barriers between the data teams and the analytics teams and organizations. The relationships allow us to spend far less time waiting for our data engineers to build specific SQL views for the analysts. And I know in smaller organizations, that person might be the same person, and it's still going to save them time. Hopefully, with the new relationship models, you're spending less time writing SQL code and more time doing your analytics work. And when I say that too, I think it's also preparing us for a future where everyone begins to start this shift towards a star or snowflake database schema. And I can't really do a great job of explaining what that exactly is. So my recommendation to you is to just Google snowflakes. Just Google snowflake schema. There's going to be a lot of documentation out there that explains it far better than probably I'm prepared to on today's call. And so with all of that said, I'm going to switch my screen share to be my full screen, which I think is this one. Yeah. And let's dive in to our little exercise for today. And so I want to begin by talking about our data source. So the data source that we're going to be using today is called Bookshop Data. It is made available to us by Tableau, and they use it on their website for a lot of their video trainings and a lot of their tutorials that they have. But most specifically, I want to be looking at this, this layout so I can understand how the tables are supposed to be joined together. Because what we're going to be doing in our exercise is we're going to build a data flow from the bookshop. We're going to build a data model in the bookshop data in 2019.4. And we're also going to build that same data model in 2020.3 and kind of just experience what the difference is between those two sources. So the path that I've chosen for us to follow today is, I wish that, one second. I wish that this was on this screen. Okay, great. We're gonna follow this book set over to edition and over to sales. And so we've got, this table does a great job of identifying for us what those joining fields should be for us while we build this data model. And so I will clear these drawings, and I'm going to leave this up on the screen while we begin our model in 2019.4. So let's start with book. We're just going to drag it out on the field. Tableau is going to grab it and populate it right away. And then we're going to go ahead and grab info and drag it out. Tableau can't find a field, so it's going to tell me, hey, what's going on here? And I know because of this table that I need to be joining book ID 1 plus book ID 2. So I'm going to take book ID, create a calculated join, put that over here on the screen, which we know to be, close this, book ID 1 plus book ID 2. All right, and it is selected an inner join for us, and that is just fine. So this is completed. Moving on to addition. So let's grab addition, and we're going to pull it out, and we are going to do nothing because Tableau has identified that book ID joins to book ID. And it also selected an inner join for us. And then the last one that we want is sales. And so Tableau has found sales matches on the ISBN for both of these data sources, and that is correct. But I don't want just quarter 1. I want quarters 2, 3, and 4 as well. So I'm going to go ahead and union those. And then I'm going to rename this because it's not Q1 anymore. It's all sales. And so that's how we're used to building this data model in Tableau. And so let's take a look at what that looks like in the new environment. So let's start with grabbing book and pulling it out. And right away, we're going to notice that book, this asset, looks visibly different in the data model pane. And let's explore what is going on there. So if I double click on this, it takes me into a new window where I can see book, and this is where the environment is exactly the same as it always has been. So I'm going to grab info, I'm going to pull it out, drop it in, I'm going to tell it inner join, and I'm going to do that book ID, or to create my custom calculation. And then I can close this, and now this remains its own asset. Let's continue down the path and grab addition. And you'll see now this is that noodle that they've been talking about. Maybe you've heard about it. It's nice and squiggly. It's got this cool animation as you drag it out and move things around it. But when I drop it out, I'm going to get a new prompt. It's going to say edit relationship. And that is activated by clicking on the line between them. And in here, it's going to look really similar to defining the join. So it's going to say, hey, book ID equals book ID in the new source. And I'm going to have some additional options down here. So these are performance options, and these are going to help increase the speed of your queries and the speed of your workbooks. Largely, you do not need to make a lot of adjustments with these items. If you want to understand more about cardinality or referential integrity, they do have a link here in Tableau natively that you can take to go learn more about those. But largely, these presets are going to solve for you a majority of the time. But if you are super intimate with your data set, then feel free to go in and set the cardinality or the integrity of this relationship. And lastly, we're going to take sales and we're going to bring it out and connect it to addition. And it's found ISBN for us. And we're going to open that up and do the same as we did before and union in these 3 other quarters. So I want to rename this as sales. And so that's what it looks like to build these two exact same data models in the 2 different environments. Now they operate largely differently, and let's talk about what that means. If I go to the list view, you can see that in this data model, Tableau has run and created a query that pulls in every column from every table that I've attached. So I have all of the different column names, but it's in the new model, it's going to be treating each of these items independent from one another. And so that's what I mean when I tell you that it's part of preparing for the new type of schema and the new type of connections that Tableau is operating. So it's leaving all of these items independent of one another. And another great call out about this system is that Tableau is not going to use any of these tables if it doesn't have to. So if you build this data model and you dive into your sheet, maybe you don't use sales at all. The queries that operate in the backend are never going to even go near that sales table. As where before in the previous models, Tableau has already churned through all of this data to create one massive output to be visualized on the screen. As where now, it's not being visualized until you drag items out onto your sheets. Do we have any questions so far, Alex, that I should probably address as we go through? I'm not watching the chat.
I'm watching the question board and there's nothing out there at the moment.
Okay, cool. I'll stop a couple of times in between. And if anyone has any questions that they'd like me to address while I'm building through, I will stop.
We do have one that popped up now. What's the difference between relationships and blending?
Great question. So view relationships more as kind of like I said earlier, when you're trying to, in a scenario where you would go to your data team and say, hey, I have these couple of tables and I need you to put them into a view so that my records aren't duplicated over and over again. You can still do blends in the new model, but you should be able to build relationships now instead, if that makes sense.
We have another one out there. Can't we have filters at logical model?
I think that is absolutely true, right? So the new data model, the way that it's been pitched and described from Tableau, is that this layer that we're looking at here is what's called the logical layer. And when you drill into these boxes, this is called the physical layer. And in the physical layer lives the exact same thing that we're used to before. And I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But yeah, you can absolutely, in the same way that you did before, have data source filters at the logical level.
Okay, those are the 2 we have at the moment.
Cool. And if those were unclear, feel free to ping us after and I can address that deeper. Oh, I do want to call out also, I think I forgot to mention this, that in the new UI, a great way to identify things that are happening inside of the physical layer are by the new icons that exist, right? So you can see these stacked bars signifying to me that, hey, there's a union going on in here. And you can see this Venn diagram letting me know that there's some joins happening in here, as where addition has nothing because it's just a singular table. And so one of the things that I like to talk about too is hey, what happens when I open up my 2019 workbook in the 2020 environment? What's going to go on with my data? And so let's take a look at what happens. I'm going to save this file. And we're going to call it upscale. It's packaged Tableau workbook, and I'm going to go ahead and save it. And then I'm going to open it up in the latest version of Tableau. Some interesting things are going to happen. So Tableau has taken our entire data model that we had built and compressed it into a single logical container. And if I click inside of that, here exists the model that we had built previously. And so its way to upscale is to compress everything into a single table. I could take this and create further relationships on it if I wanted to. Maybe I wanted something like author, and I could connect it and build a relationship there. And Tableau would identify that. But there is currently no way for Tableau to interpret your model that you built previously and realign that to fit the model that we have built the way that we did over here. So we're going to close upscale. Okay, so moving on down the list, let's talk about what's going on with sheet 1. This is the sheet 1 that we know and love, where our, oh, this is still the upscale workbook. Oh no, did I close the wrong workbook? 1 second. I did. How embarrassing. Just gonna have to rebuild this really quickly in front of everyone and make no mistakes. Okay, and we're back. So here's sheet 1. This is what we're used to. We've got our measures all blue and at the top organized by our data source. And down below, we've got our measures green and organized by data source. What does that look like in the new model? Now, our measures and dimensions are sorted entirely by data source. So you'll find your dimensions above the line and your measure below. Same thing for addition and sales. So a slightly different organization. You're still going to know measures because they're green. You're still going to know dimensions because they're blue. But instead of being separated in the middle, they're going to be separated multiple times. Another thing that you'll notice is that the number of records value is no longer present. Instead, you're going to have these count fields. And these count fields will operate the same way as your number of records field did before. But when you're building in the new model, you have to think about your viz level of detail. And you're going to need to use the count field from the table that is the lowest level of detail in your viz. Otherwise, your counts aren't going to work out exactly how you expect them to. And I think that is all we need to talk about for what's going on sheet 1. Does anyone have any questions about the new layout of sheet 1? All right, we're moving along. Let's talk about how we might get to skip the LOD. And I'm going to call out right now that this is a bad example, but we're going to pretend like this data set is the way that I say that it is, even though it isn't. Because I was really struggling to come up with a great example. So do know that in certain scenarios, this will work, but not all the time. So say we have this data set all about books, and we want to know the number of pages in each book, right? That's a fair question. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to drag title. I'm going to drag it to rows. And here are all of my books. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to grab pages and I'm going to pull it out. Now, what I know about books is that they're certainly not 1.6 million pages long. And what we know about our data model that we had built is that the more inner joins that I throw on this, the more certain items are going to be duplicated. And the information on pages is actually stored back here. So every time that there is a sale recorded, the number of pages is being replicated over and over and over again because of the way that Tableau builds that singular table, right? As it pieces each item together, more and more information shows up into our query. So what we have to do typically is build a calculated field. And so we're going to throw together a fixed calculation. I'll call this fixed pages. And we're going to do fixed on the ISBN of the book. Min, no, we'll do the max of pages. Now, if I take this out onto the field, this number of pages looks far more believable than the 1.6 million. And so I'm going to go ahead and drop this off, and then I'm going to sort really quickly. And now I have a reasonable expectation about the number of pages that exist in each of these books. Let's replicate this exercise in the new environment. So let's go grab title, drag it to rows. And then we're going to go grab pages and drag it out into the pane. And then sort by descending. And what you can identify right away is that Tableau recognizes using relationships. It never touched the sales table. And so it didn't need to replicate that information about that book over and over and over again. It just kind of knew what I wanted it to do. And so I didn't have to do any additional work to get the intended outcome. And so the reason that I said earlier that this is a bad example is because this is definitely achievable over here by using the pages measure, but instead of doing a sum, using the same max function. But that's just a nature of the way that this bookshop data set is built. But we're just going to pretend that it's not. So looking at the outcome of our quick analysis on the number of pages, this looks great, but I've noticed something. And the thing that I've noticed actually exists down here at the bottom left, which is that there are 56 marks with 35,000 pages in my previous model, and there are 58 marks with 36,000 pages in the new model. What might be driving that? What's driving that is our data source. When Tableau assumed an inner join, items exist in some lists, but not in others. And so they're getting dropped off in the sales. So what I'll have to do is a little bit of extra work on my data modeling side by converting these to full outer joins. And now when I come back to this page, I see that I now have all of the books present and all of the pages. That's all that I really had to cover today in kind of this quick rundown of the workbooks. If I was going to recommend to you guys any one thing to really go observe and look at when you're working with relationships, it's on this all links list, and I've colored it orange. It's called Other Behaviors, and it's going to talk a lot about some of the things that happen with nulls or unmatched fields that can cause some kind of wonky or unintended effects on your workbooks as you guys get used to the new model. Uh-oh, I can't hear you, Alex. I wonder if
I was just to say, are you about done? Because we are running up against time.
Oh, there we go. I can hear you now.
Yes. Do you have much more? Because we're running up against time.
Oh, nope. This is it. I am done.
Okay. Well, we do have a few questions out there. What I'd like to do so we can run through the trivia challenge real quick before we hit 11 o'clock is have Sean answer those offline, and I will post the answers to the LinkedIn, if that's cool with you, Sean. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I will do that. You can see the questions out. There's a few questions out here, but what we're going to do for now so that we can fit everything in here is send people to the Kahoot. So go to kahoot.it, and I just put it in the meeting chat. See if I can say. Yeah, we're presenting. Let me see if I can get the. Yeah, I'm loading the game pin right now, so I'm going to share the screen. You can see it. There is our game. Game number. So if you go to kahoot.it, you want to enter in that game pin. Or if you have the web app, right? So I'm going to do it on my side computer here. 6891. And I'm going to enter in my name. I'm going to make sure that I don't actually do it so you can see Alex P is in there, but I'm not actually going to compete on one where I know all the answers. We'll see how many people are in. When we're done, everyone, we will have prizes. So I'm wearing a hat, I'm wearing a shirt, I have a mug on me right here, right? You know, we'll hand out some Tableau swag to the winners here. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's not a big pool here of people who are going to be in the challenge here, which means it'll be very easy to award prizes, right? I'm just pointing that out for the people who are still in the meeting. 33 people on the meeting. You know, your odds are pretty good right now. So I'm going to turn that down a little bit. What's playing in the background is just a viz that or a little Tableau music video I put together just of a bunch of visualization screenshots from the conference and various vizzes that I thought looked cool. We'll give people just a couple more seconds and then we're going to get started. Yep, I see my nickname on the screen. Okay, so how do I do this? All right, I'm going to stop sharing just for a moment so that I can activate the Kahoot. Okay, it is going. So everybody, you should see the screen. Which version of Tableau is free for use, and you have to pick the color of the correct answer. All right, so I'll share my screen. You can say which version of Tableau is free for use. You can see the time winding down. The faster you answer, the more points you get. I will give this one Okay, the correct answer was Tableau Public. So 9 out of the 11 people who answered that one got that one right. We're gonna go to the next question, and you can kind of see where the scoring has gone so far. And you've got to answer this on your own machine. I'm going to answer incorrectly on purpose. All right. 7 out of 13 got that one right. This one's maybe a little harder. Let's keep it moving. Which of these Superstore data fields would be a green pill in Tableau? So this is a little bit harder, right? You have to know what you're talking about now. You have to remember what color pills mean what too. Correct answer is customer name. Only 3 people got that right. We can see what the leaderboard looks like right now, but there's plenty of questions left, so we're going to run through them. For those of you who need to run, thank you for joining us. We're going to keep going through the rest of the quiz till it ends. This one, I believe, is multiple choice. Meaning you can choose more than one. Yep, there were 2 correct answers. A few people got that right. Mm, 50-50. Schedule, monitor, administer your data flows with this product for Tableau server. Answer was prep conductor. Reminder, okay, Nicholas is in the lead by a lot, but there's still time, right? And there's going to be a top 3. So the people who aren't there, it looks like it's very close, maybe even beyond the top 5. It is true. So again, thank you for everyone who has joined. For those who need to run to another meeting, thank you for joining. This will be recorded. We'll send out a link to the recording when we have it. WBX. Can look at the leaderboard. It's definitely a race for 2nd and 3rd places at least. Someone is on fire, and that would be Nicholas. abstract filters is what is applied first. The answer is ask data, not ask Tableau. All right, I think we might have 1 or 2 questions left. We're almost done here. Oh yeah, we got 3 left. Zen masters get a rock. You can make an argument for any one of those. There are a couple more questions. All right, we are down to our last question, and I will let everyone know that the last question is a Chicagoan special. This is definitely for kicks. So I took a screenshot of the leaderboard here. This should probably be the ones who win, but nevertheless, one more question. For playing. I was just on mute for a moment, but thank you everyone for playing. Thank you to our winners. I put my email in the chat. you can send me your info and we can send you some Tableau swag. And to our presenters as well and the people who are watching, thank you for everything. I will send out links to the questions that weren't answered, to the recording, and for the winners some swag. And thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. See you later. Bye, everybody.